Good evening and welcome to another edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. It's Monday, December 5th, 2022. This is episode number 38. And boy, we're coming to you for our first show in December. We hope you are having a grand time with the first 37 episodes as our YouTube channel continues to gain very, very positive views. And we hope that you are having a grand time enjoying all of the look back at these wonderful toys and games which we give to you on a 3-day-a-week basis. Tonight, we're looking at the simple racing board game published by Hasbro that requires no reading and no minimal counting skills, making it suitable for young children. No strategies involved as players are never required to make choices. Only following directions is required. And about 1 million copies per year are sold. This game was established in 1949, 72 years ago. We'll be celebrating its 73rd birthday this coming December 14th. We're looking at the game that literally you played when you were a kid. It's Candyland, and that's what we're attributing tonight on Jay's Retro Toys and Games. Okay, we hope you had a fantastic weekend, and welcome to this edition of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. I'm Jason DeCanio, your gracious host and moderator for this edition of the Retro Toys and Games look at episode number 38 of Candyland on this Monday, December 5th, 2022. As I mentioned before at the top of the show, it is a 72-year-old established game published by Milton Bradley and Hasbro, and Winning Moves Games USA was the last contributor to pick up the distribution rights. So, as they say, the race is woven around a storyline about finding King Candy, the lost king of Candyland. And the board consists of a winding linear track made of 134 spaces, most red, green, blue, yellow, orange, or purple. The remaining pink spaces are named locations such as Candy Cane Forest and Gumdrop Mountain, or characters such as Queen Frostine and Grandma Nut. Players take turns removing the top card from a stack, most of which show one of 6 colors, and then moving their marker ahead to the next space of that color. Some cards have 2 marks of a color, in which case the player moves the marker ahead to the second next space of that color. The deck has 1 card for each named location, and drawing such a card moves a player directly to that board location. This move can be either forward or backward. In the classic game, backward moves can be ignored for younger players in the 2004 version of the game. Prior to 2006, the board had 3 colored spaces marked with a dot. 2 of these spaces were designated as Cherry Pitfalls, and the other was situated in Molasses Swamp. A player who lands on such a space is stuck. All cards are ignored until a card is drawn of the same color as the square. In the 2006 version, dot spaces were replaced with licorice spaces that prompt the player landing on it to simply lose the next turn. The game is won by landing on or passing the final square and thus reaching the goal of the Candy Castle. The official rules specify that any card that would cause the player to advance past the last square wins the game, but many play so that one must land exactly on the last square to win. The 2004 version changed the last space from a violet square to a rainbow space, meaning it applies to any color drawn by a player, thus resolving any dispute about exactly who wins the game. And as of 2013, Candyland is being sold by Hasbro with a spinner instead of cards. The spinner includes all outcomes that were previously on the cards. Well, the game was designed in 1948 by Eleanor Abbott while she was recovering from polio in San Diego, California. The game was made for and tested by the children in the same wards on the hospital. The children suggested that Abbott submit the game to Milton Bradley Company. The game was bought by Milton Bradley and first published in 1949 as a temporary fill-in for their then main product line, school supplies. Well, Candyland became Milton Bradley's best-selling game, surpassing its previous top seller, Uncle Wiggily, and put the company in the same league as its main competitor, Parker Brothers. The original art has been purported to be by Abbott, although this is uncertain. In 1984, Hasbro purchased Milton Bradley. Landmark Entertainment Group revamped the game with new art, adding characters and a storyline in 1984. Hasbro produces several versions of the game and treats it as a brand. For example, it markets Candyland Puzzles, a travel version, a personal computer game, and a handheld electronic version. Candyland was involved in one of the first disputes over internet domain names in 1996. An adult web content provider registered Candyland.com, and Hasbro objected. Hasbro obtained an injunction against the use. In 2012, Hasbro announced a film which triggered a lawsuit by Landmark Entertainment Group over ownership and royalties owned for the characters and storyline introduced in the 1984 edition. The Toy Industry Association named Candyland as the most popular toy in the U.S. for the 1940s. In 2005, the game was inducted into the National Toy Hall of Fame at the Strong Museum in Rochester, New York, and about 1 million copies per year are sold. At least 4 versions of the Candyland board game were made. The first dates from 1949. And this version and other early versions had only locations like Molasses Swamp, Gumdrop Mountains, etc., and no characters. A board copyrighted in 1962 shows a track layout different from the more recent versions. The first edition, the pawns were wooden, but were changed in the 1967 version to plastic gingerbread men. The 1984 edition introduced a storyline and characters such as Mr. Mint and Grandma Nut in the modern track layout and ends with a purple square. Now, some of the characters and places' names were changed in 2002. Queen Frostine became Princess Frostine. The classic Molasses Swamp was changed to Chocolate Swamp. Princess Lolly was changed to Lolly, and the character Plumpy was removed entirely. A VCR board game version was released in 1986, and Hasbro released an electronic version of the game for Windows in 1998. An animated 2005 feature called Candyland, The Great Lollipop Adventure, was produced and later spawned a DVD game version of Candyland. The Give Kids the World Village edition of Candyland was produced by Hasbro especially for the Give Kids the World Village, which was a non-profit resort in Kissimmee, Florida, for children with life-threatening illnesses and their families. Traditional Candyland characters and locations were replaced when the venues and characters of the village, such as Mayor Clayton and Ms. Murray. There are licensed versions of Candyland with characters such as Winnie the Pooh, Dora the Explorer, and SpongeBob. And here are the characters, if you're not familiar with them. You have the kids. In the classic version, there are 2 blonde twins. In 2002, there are 4 kids of varying races. 2013 edition, they are a marshmallow and an ice cream cone, a gumdrop, and a gingerbread girl. You have Mr. Mint. He lives in the candy cane forest and is a candy cane woodcutter. He was removed from World of Sweets and then brought back for the 2013 version as an ice skater instead of a woodcutter. You have the Duke of Swirl, Grandma Nut, Baz, he's the dog and official pet of Grandma Nut. King Candy, you have Jolly, Plumpy, Mama Ginger Tree, Cupcake Commons, Princess Lolly, Queen Frostine, Lord Licorice, Spedora, Buzzy, and Crockett. They're the pets of Lord Licorice. You have Gloppy, Gingerbread Kids, Jib, you got Ginga Ninja, and Grandma Gooey, and Fluffy Puffer. So the candy section of Toys R Us in New York City's Times Square maintained a Candyland theme until losing its license for the characters in 2006. The theme included a colored pathway that mimicked the board for the game and several Candyland characters and candy-themed shelving and ceiling decorations. Candyland was one of several Hasbro properties featured in the 2011 one-shot comic book Unit E, which attempted to revamp and tie together several of Hasbro's dormant properties. Princess Lolly is seen in one page with Synergy from Gem, the son of Acroyear, and his servant Biotron, both from Micronauts, discussing her and her other fairies that have crossed over from their land onto Earth more than once. Synergy believes the creatures of Primadora, an attempted reworking of Inhumanoids, may have been the result of someone angering the fairies in the past, though she admits she's uncertain if there is, in fact, the case. Now, an animated 2005 feature called Candyland, The Great Lollipop Adventure, was produced. It was dedicated to Eleanor Abbott, creator of the game, who died before the film came out. In February of 2009, Universal Pictures announced plans for a film based on the Candyland board game. Etan Cohen, a writer for comedies Madagascar, Escape to Africa, and Tropic Thunder, was hired to write the screenplay. Kevin Lima, who directed Enchanted, was set to direct. However, in 2011, a new screenwriting team was designated, composed of Jonathan Abel and Glenn Berger. They said, "We don't see it as a movie based on a board game, although it has characters from that world and takes the idea of people finding themselves in a world that happens to be made entirely of candy, where there are huge battles going on. We are going for real comedy, real action, and real emotions at stake." By January 2012, Columbia Pictures, Happy Madison, and Adam Sandler were in final negotiations to develop the film, with Sandler both starring and co-writing the screenplay with Robert Smigel. In July of 2014, a lawsuit by Landmark Entertainment Group took place over ownership and royalties owned for the characters and the storyline introduced in the 1984 edition. A cooking competition show, which was based on the game and hosted by Kristen Chenoweth, premiered on Food Network on November 5th of 2020, November 15th. Teams of dessert chefs competed over 6 weeks for a $25,000 grand prize. And there you have it, folks. The story of the board game that literally swept the country has been active for over 72 and a half years. Will celebrate the 73rd birthday in 9 days. And we hope that Candyland will be a memory that serves you in your household for many years to come, so that you can tell your kids and grandkids what you played when you grew up. Well, next time on the program, which will be this Wednesday, we'll be looking at the game that was the predecessor, not the predecessor, but the companion to that children's game that we all like to play. It's a board game for 2 or more players, regarded today as a worldwide classic. And the actual board game originated in ancient India as Moksha Patam and was brought to the UK in the 1890s. It is played on a game board with numbered gridded squares, a number of ladders and snakes. It used to be called Snakes and Ladders. But a more simpler version for children is what they like to call Chutes and Ladders. And we'll be looking at that game this Wednesday on episode number 39 of Jay's Retro Toys and Games. I'm Jason DeCanio. Hope that you had a great time with us on this edition. Remember, friends, always be honest, be real, and keep it simple, stupid. Kiss. We will see you on Wednesday. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to subscribe to the David3000 Network for great more content like this one.